Kong, the Monkey King. He likes to fight and he likes to sing.
Let's see what we got here. Alternate comics. Heard about these guys. What are they doing? How are these so good and so affordable? $1.50. I don't understand. Is this what I think it is? But how? How? What the f***?
Give us any chance, we'll take it. Read us any rules, we'll break it. We're gonna make our dreams come true. Doing it our way. Nothing's gonna hold us back now. Straight ahead and on the track now. Gonna make our dreams come true. Doing it our way.
Hey homies, what's up? Ryan Wynn here with a very special episode of Late Night Inks. But before we get started, if anyone is interested, I have reopened my store, Envy Store. Link is in the description below. Got a couple cool sketch covers. I think they're pretty cool sketch covers. I think this is the coolest Bloodshot I've ever done. That's available over there, as well as the Batman I just showed. There you go. And that's on a Detective Comics 1000 cover, and this is on a Bloodshot Rising Spirit. Issue 1 of which I did finishes in inks. But that's not why we're here today. No. We are here to look at these original art pages I found. Everybody let me know that I'm coming in loud and clear, and then we're going to say hi to everybody in the chat before we take a look at these. All right, we got Jackson Zelda. Hey, Ryan, good evening to all. Eric Housel wanted to know if I'm doing Hammerella 100% in Procreate. The answer to that is 80 to 90%. Doing most of the layouts and pencils in my sketchbook, then snapping a sketchbook snapshot and drop it into Procreate, finishing the pencils, inks, colors, and then I'm going to be doing the lettering in Illustrator. Thank you for the question, Eric. Says he's working on a children's book with his brother and attempting to use Procreate as much as he can. It's very new to him. Yeah, I can't. Like I said, it can be tough, but it'll be worth it. Gingerton in the house. Johnny Fitz stopping by to say hello. Welcome to the channels, Charles. Try that again. Take 2. Welcome to the channel, Charles Petrie. I believe we saw each other in the page 1 chat. So thanks for checking out the channel. What we do here once a week on Late Night Inks is for about an hour or so, we just talk about inking and inks. I used to be an inker for a good 20 years. I was an assistant to Danny Mickey and then John Levisay and then Joe Weems. Among other people, I did work with tons of other creators. I've done pencils, skateboard designs, graphic designs for toys, all that kinds of stuff. The last few years, I've been focusing on creator-owned stuff. I write and color Gods and Gears with artist and co-creator Dean Kotz. And I am the writer and artist and colorist letter on Hammerella, which is in demand in the description below. We are doing well on that. We broke 15,500 this week. Hey, TJ Good Thunder, speak of the devil. We stole his name, the Thunder Bros. He and his brothers, they are characters in our book, Gods and Gears. All right, my homie Death Curse hanging out. So I need to put a link in the description below, but once a month I will be hosting an inking video that is exclusive to the Death Curse Patreon. And that's $1 a month will get you that video plus all the other nonsense that they do over there. But I have an Ink Like a Man series. It'll be one video a month, and it's almost the first video is almost like a 15-minute radio show where we do a time lapse of an inking video over a Can't Kill Cade image, and we play different music, and I tell you what tools I'm using and what the songs are in between the tunes. So that's going to be fun. So $1 a month, that'll get you into that. You can listen to all the other crazy stuff if you want to, but show up for the ink videos. Everybody's saying hi to everybody. We got Simon7 in the house. What is up, brother? We got GJ Martinez. Hey, everyone. Finally. Hey, it's good to have you here, GJ. Simon7 is loving the intro. Yeah, it's going to be fluctuating. I've got a Mighty Mascots ad I'm going to be dropping in there, and we're going to be running some other ads. I've got a couple other alternate commercials too. Like I have the one where they, smell the newsprint. That one's pretty cool. Eliza Bar has stopped by. He was watching the Eternal Oblivion NPC dialogue stream, but I have instead chosen to become a winner. Well, welcome. I hope this is a worth it stream. Lots of stories and lots of cool art and lots of cool memories when I found these pages. And it was really funny. I mentioned it to Rooster Puncher or Spencer Desmond or Death Curse, as some of you know him here on YouTube. And this was one of those things. It was a book that he was a kid reading and absolutely loved it and didn't realize I'd worked on it because I wasn't credited, which is totally fair. I was Danny Mickey's assistant. It was Crime Lab Inkworks at the time. I think a year later we became Crime Lab Studios. And someday I will talk more about that. Hey, D. Hausner, what is up? I don't know if I said hey to Ginger Tim. If I didn't, I meant to, because Ginger is one of my favorites. We got David Hayner, DDC Studios. What's up, homies? One of the kings of mini comics right there. And one of the kings of family comics. He and his son working on mini comics together. Really funny stuff. I recommend following him on Twitter. I'm not just saying that because he's a good friend. Genuine, really funny stuff. Like you will laugh out loud at his sense of humor. Good family stuff too. All right, sounding good, loud and clear. We are catching up. Everybody's here. Everybody wants to look at these pages. Hey, Kayla, what's up, Kayla? Snap into it, huh, sister? And Jeff Elkins. These are all Death Curse homies here hanging out. All right. So once again, welcome. We got Charles. Welcome, Charles. I know he's the only new face I see. Hey, Aragelanian, one of my favorite people. Hey, Indie Dave Comics. Somebody I have been meaning to reach out to. I want to book you for a comic ship episode. Indie Dave has been one of my longest YouTube supporters. My very first live test streams at 3-4 in the morning. I think he was getting off work and he would just show up and he was tired, but he would hang out and make sure that I was doing things right and the sound and everything was coming through. But he has a book called Oddity, and he has a new book that I'm drawing a blank on. I'm usually pretty good about this, but I've had an off week. But you're somebody I need to hit you up in the DMs, buddy. Good to have you here. All right, everyone talking to each other. And looks like we can get started. So Ghost Rider 2 issue 3. Of course, I didn't do any further research on the project to refresh my memory. I do remember Devin Grayson wrote the book, and this was before I knew that was a made-up pen name. Hey, Silver Ogre, what's up, buddy? I feel like I hadn't seen you in a few weeks. Kept missing you in the RV DM, and yeah, good to see you, man. Good to have you here. Anyways, that's before I knew that was a made-up name. I just thought it was such a cool coincidence that somebody that worked in comics' last name was Grayson. Anyways, I had been Danny Mickey's assistant for, only a few months, maybe 6 months or so. We had done a few issues of Spawn together, and by a few issues, that means I was doing 1 page or 2 pages at first, starting with issue 104. Hey, G. Lee, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. So this project came along, and this was at the start of Danny really building the studio. So Marvel didn't want him using, studio people or anyone else that wasn't him. They didn't want to credit extra people. They didn't want anyone asking for extra money because they were running a studio in spite of how many books they may be doing for the company. and they definitely weren't offering contracts, which is still an issue with me. But anyways, Trent came along, and Trent was new. I was new. Obviously, I was just the assistant inker doing backgrounds and small figures on this, but this was what Danny saw this as a great prime opportunity for me to cut my teeth. It was a cartoonier, chunky style. Which means it's a little more forgiving. So if I messed up a line, he could kind of easily go in and clean it up. It isn't something that was, really slick brush lines or anything like that. And this was a time where Danny was maybe using 90% nib, maybe even more than that. And he started exploring more brush. And he started exploring more brush with the flames and the foliage in this, because Trent really delivered like a lot of texture. And I thought this was a cool project back then. I was 21 or so. But now that I haven't looked at these pages in maybe a decade, and looking at them now, Trent was kicking butt. I'm impressed with these layouts, his black placement, his compositions, his pacing. Very impressed. Now I understand Trent's a student of the comics and animation and manga, and his he studies, so he was obviously doing what we were all doing, and that's looking at your favorite guys, and when they get called upon to do an establishing shot, what do they do? And here we are. It's not a 3-point perspective. It's a simple 2-point, but having it pulled up, it kind of gives the illusion of that. It's just, I don't know, it's fantastic. It's layered nicely. It's got nice black shapes in the backgrounds to pop the foreground elements, and then this nice little high contrast zone to draw your eye into where the figures are. Now, I would have been tasked on this panel with doing the motorcycle, this toolbox, the ground, and then eventually this issue, the first issue I didn't do that. The second issue, this one here, I started doing the foliage and the grass. It was something I had to practice, and I had to show Danny over vellum. We used to use vellum over Xeroxes at the time. This is early, this has to be 2000 or 99, 2000, something like that. Maybe start of 2001. So I would have been doing, all of this. I did basically this entire panel. These were some of the very first figures I ever inked in comics. I got to do these tiny figures. I was also in charge of doing the panel borders, but not at first. Danny's wife would, I don't want to say her name or anything. I don't know if she's public these days, but anyways, his wife would, she would handle this material because she had very nice handwriting. And sometimes she would do the panel borders for us. But I think once I started there, I was in charge of doing my own panel borders. We can just go kind of panel by panel here. And then she would also kind of do a once-over on the black areas, the spot blacks, to make sure that they were just nice and solid. Now, one of the things, I don't know if you can see it in the video, this page is barely erased. So that's one of the things that's kind of cool about this is Trent's actual pencils are still kind of on this page. And there's handwritten notes from him on the next one. I love this motorcycle here. I'm going to put it on that bike for a bit. Danny was having a lot of fun just going in and freehanding all this tech work. This was all brush. All these heavy lines were brush. And then smaller things, these were all nib. And then, of course, detail, he goes in with nib and does his McFarlane Studios kind of Danny Mickey stuff. So one of the reasons that the pencils still remain there, you're like, what are you talking about? Didn't you erase it and scan it? And that's how you got to the colorist? No, my friends. These pages in particular were barely erased by, I think, Mrs. Mickey and myself, and then shoved in a FedEx box. And then I had to chase FedEx truck. This happened more often than I'd like to admit. No, it doesn't matter. I'm not embarrassed by it. It had nothing to do with me. But we would literally, I would run. I would have to chase the FedEx truck and get these into his hand, scanned, get the receipt, go back, and we would either call the Marvel editors or or email them. It was funny how little email was going on then, but we had a scanner, but we didn't have an 11x17 scanner yet. And the office didn't know we had a scanner because we didn't want them making us scan our work. That wasn't our job. It was production's job. So we didn't even have to erase. We could send this half erased, and their production office was supposed to clean it up and do the scanning. Now we've got these pages back. They didn't do that because I guess they thought it was erased enough for their scanning and photograph methods. And it is. You have no idea how many pages I've sent in that there's still pencil on, and when it goes to print, you can't see it once the color's in there and stuff. As long as it's not, distracting structure lines and things like that. But that's sort of how it was done then. It was a couple years later, we all had to get our own scanners, and the companies started laying off all their production people, and it was up to us to do all the production work now. I think you guys have heard, many of you have probably heard Art T. Bear talk about that stuff when there was sort of the changeover, and then they wanted us all to print on blue line and stuff like that. That was a slower transition, but everyone had to get scanners right away because it was basically, if you can't get the work to them, they aren't going to hire you. That's just how it is. Now at the time, I'm early 20s. I'm working at a store called Sterling Art in Irvine, California. If any of you are familiar with the store, let me know. It has been closed for almost a decade now, maybe. It moved locations and then just slowly closed down. But I thought it was funny at the time. This guy kind of looked like Steve, the owner of Sterling Art, to me. And what I would do, I would, go to my job. It was a retail job. I was, having a lot of fun working there, but, standard retail job. But in between, or on my downtime, I would take like a Post-it note, pad of Post-its like this that I had in my pocket, and I would take a brush pen. And this was back when brush pens, there weren't very many good ones. But I would have like, I think it was the Sakura one, those tan barreled ones. And I would just have one of those, and I would practice these flames. Trent has a certain movement that he does with the flames. We'll come back to that page too, but he's got a certain technique he does. Let's get in a little closer. It's these rhythms and curling patterns. And again, I think Trent had to be in his early 20s doing this. So yeah, it was my job to do the flames, unless it was a splash page. Danny would handle those. So by issue 2, I was doing these flames, and these are nowhere near. Oh gosh, these are so sloppy. Even though the style is sort of chunky, these are cringy to me now. But young me, hey, good job, young me. But I would just practice that. So customers would leave and I'd be at the register, and I would just be filling up these Post-it notes with practicing those flame movements. And man, I was practically drawing them in my sleep. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. This is a cool panel here. And this is one I got to sneak in and do a few more things. Like, since Ghost Rider was relatively small in the panel and kind of mixed in with his bike, I kind of went in. I remember I did his boot, I did his buckle, and Danny liked the way I did the buckle because I had the bloops in the right spot and the thin and thicks and stuff. And I remember him saying like, "Okay, go in and finish." And I remember being so stoked on this knee. Like, I got like a little line and then the little shadow there, so I got this kind of grayed out area like Danny would make, and I got to do some of this rendering. Danny did the skull though, still did the face. I can tell up close, I can see that these are Danny's like very controlled, very precise lines. But I'm pretty stoked on the bike work. He did this rendering in here. Those lines, I don't even know if you can tell on video. I mean, these things are thinner than paper. And his whole point at the time was it didn't matter if the lines showed up. It mattered if it created the right gray tone. And that was sort of, I want to say remnant, but I don't mean that in a bad way. But that was sort of a holdover, whatever. It was what we'd learned at McFarlane Studios. It was Todd had come from an older time where you were shooting on newsprint, and sometimes if you could get it to have a gray transition from black to gray to white, boom, then however you made it happen. So Danny's thing at the time, since we weren't, like I said, we weren't scanning, this was just to create a gray area. And there's so many pages that he inked over, guys like Trent or Angel Medina or Greg Capullo back in that era. Dwayne Turner, especially over on the Spawn books. And then when I say especially, I actually mean the work he did over Dwayne Turner on Batman. Oh, I forget the character's name. It begins with an O. There's a bad guy or another vigilante, but they did a miniseries, and he did some extremely intricate, fine, detailed work there. Just lots of tonal work. And by tonal work, I mean playing with the white, the black, and the gray, and how those work. Now, one of the things that makes this a very distinct Danny Mickey page is what we call the dits in the background here. I was not doing these yet. Once we got to issues, I think this was a 6-issue miniseries. Once we got like 3 or 4 issues in, I started doing some of them if there wasn't a headshot behind it. So I would do ones like this. Now Danny has his own unique style. This one doesn't have as many swirls and stuff, but you can see the way he's gone in. Look at the black shapes first. Don't look at the dits. The dits are the crisscross hatches there. Don't look at those. Look at the black shapes in there. Look at the way it's broken up here a little bit. That's the brush line. He's done a thin, and then it's a thick chunks, and you can almost see like chunks in the wall. It's textured. Like everything has purpose. He isn't just going in and slopping it down. And then he just creates that tonal shift from black to white with that gray patch of cross-hatching. Again, we called those dits. And this is a Trent thing that is cool here. Trent is very good. And like I said, especially at this age, he had to be, I don't know, 22 or 23. I'm thinking, this is such a cool move. This lighting move where the door is creating the shadow and casting this sphere of light into this dark room. And it's just so sharp. Everything leads you, this little panel, everything leads you right to him, this composition. And I like this little dude in the background. It's a guy running away, and then there's this little dude. Oh no! Oh, it looks like me. Shoot, what am I doing? And then, okay, so let's go back up here for a second. So I was going to show you this, the pencil work here. It says add logo. This is something I would probably ask Trent. Maybe I'll tweet him. I'm pretty 99% sure that has to be his pencil saying add some sort of company logo from the script that would be added to these rigs or these trailers so that they could be identified for the setting. But since it didn't get fully erased, I think that would be pretty cool if that's still Trent stuff. And this page wasn't erased either. This one even less so. It has a lot of pencils. Let's see. So this panel, we have Ghost Rider. I did those flames, and we have Ghost Rider going down the hall. And then down here, we have this note that I believe is also Trent's. It says reverse. Now, that's going to be his own editorial note that he wants it reversed so that Ghost Rider's turning going this way so that it pushes the reader for him to go through this door so that basically the camera hasn't, crossed the line or anything like that. Charles, I can see that you're going to fit in just fine here. He says, so comic book artists are ditzy? LOL joke. Yeah, no, we love that. That's great. So yeah, I don't know if you can see the pencils on here, but again, there's a lot of pencils. You can see pencil smudging here and stuff. I'm going to keep it on this panel for a second because I like Danny's work here. So he would, do these cool contour lines. And Danny wasn't so much worried about lighting. Danny's thing on contours was almost just creating this division between space and object. I remember the first time I was at his house, he was talking about that. And he said, some people, they're extremely concerned with the light and the heavy. And he's like, I do that a little bit. He's like, but I'm actually looking at it the way I look at reality. And he's like, when I look at you, I don't see an outline, but there is an essence of shadow around the object, like around the side of your ear, around the side of your head. There's this essence of shadow around objects. And that was the thing that, Danny tried to capture. And you're like, what? Get so artsy fartsy about inks? Yeah, sometimes. Especially when you're planning on making it your livelihood and you're trying to be one of the best in the country or the world or whatever, that a guy like him is, that's how he was operating. And, we'll get into some of that. I eventually got there myself trying to be artsy fartsy, especially when I was working with Joe Weems, and we would get very lost in the trying to pull off difficult moves and things like that. But, that's another story for another time. We'll get Joe on and we'll talk about that. But Danny would, do his dividing lines, his contour. He would create his lines, his shapes like that. And then you would hit his shadows. And then he would go in and create these secondary gray tones. And he could have just filled these in black, when in doubt, black it out. But by creating that, it's almost like it's reflected light, on an object. So it creates more dimension even before you've gone to colors. So you can drop a flat color on that and it creates dimension. You can, add a few highlights, but you don't need to do much when you've got line work like that. And then let's go to this Ghostwriter, because this is just an awesome Ghostwriter. It was funny. The first couple pages I saw, I was like, I don't know if I like his like chunky Ghostwriter. And then his first cover came in and I was like, I really like his chunky Ghostwriter. I also like his spirally, not just the spirally flames and things like that and smoke, but he had this spirally eye thing going on. We were all super happy with Tim Burton still 20 some years ago. So anything skulls, spirals, lightning bolts was still pretty cool. All right, I need to take a break from looking at the reflected light coming off of those boards. It is super bright, and I'm going to see who's still here and see what you guys are talking about. This is when I need music in the background. Let's see. William C. asks, going back a few minutes, is that white paper white or white ink? Let me see if I can see if there's white ink somewhere. Okay, here. You were talking about up here. Let's see. Those are definitely white ink. That's going back in with, what would he have been using then? Maybe Pro White with definitely with a nib. It might have been Pro White. Deathcare says, I'm gonna need that page. I don't know about that, man. I don't know. I only got 2 of them, and these are cool pages, man. You're gonna have to fight me for it. No, that's the worst thing I ever said. I just signed my death certificate, you guys. It's been great knowing you. But I can't believe I just said, even making that joke to Death Curse, he's going to crush me, and that's the end. All right. No, I think he's going to let me live a little longer to see another day. Jay Lee says, man, you're making me feel old now. Hey, shut up. You're making me feel old. I wasn't thinking that till you said it. No, we got a lot of good times behind us, man. That's all it is. Simon 7 says the light brings out some interesting textures in the black areas. Okay, that brings us to an interesting point. So somewhere like here, you can see this reflected spot there. That's a really shiny spot. So that's where we whited something out. There must have been a smudge there, whited out the entire area, and then inked black over that. And that creates that effect. Now, one technique we used to do was we were using speedball pigmented acrylic ink for our line work, and we were using universal ink for filling in the blacks and with brush. Now, what we figured out is, I think it was either FW. When you used FW ink, and used the universal over it, you could see where the FW lines were. So if we wanted to do something like these little white, carved in lines, or if you had something very intricate, like a reverse negative image that was black with white line work, you could go in and ink it with the FW, then black over the entire thing real quickly with the universal, and then take your white ink and just trace over the lines that you could see that were shiny. And that was one of the techniques we used. Here's another cool technique that a lot of people were trying to figure out back then. It's not going to show up too great on there, but there's a lot of broken lines here. And this was a result of using the right tool and moving extremely quickly across the page. We were using the, I normally use the Rotring rapidographs, but this was if you took the Kohinoor rapidographs, which had a tendency to break their line and get filled with paper fiber very easily and clog easily. But sometimes when you wanted that effect, it was good for that. So it was really funny. Danny was really good at that in all his pens because he's moved so quick, and they would create these natural breaks kind of at the same point. So you get this uniform light pattern. And everyone trying to copy him, you could see in their work, they were doing stop and start, breaking these lines. And you're like, oh my gosh, took that guy 30 minutes to ink that thing, and took Danny or me, this would be me, but it took, Crime Lab Studios did this in 2 minutes, and we had our special rulers built so that we could basically cheat and move around and go over things that were wet and crisscross and get things done much quicker than other studios. Silver Ogre says, I think it looks more like waves or tentacles. Well, yeah, that's part of what Danny brought to it. And then I don't have any of the pages here, but he would do that, and he would turn it into tentacles. So it would get more pronounced when it was like a more energized or kinetic shot of Ghost Rider, or a more heavy action shot, something like that. And those things would really spiral out and almost look like some sort of dimensional tentacles or something. But it was really cool. And I think he was playing with that fractal look, which you kind of see in light waves and shadows and stuff. Let's see what else you guys are. Gingerton says, damn, Ryan, you are an OG, bro. Yeah, I go way back. Yeah, Charles, this was after Danny Ketch. This was back to Johnny Blaze. It was something like he had forgotten he had been Ghost Rider, and he invited him back. I forget the storyline. Hey, Vince Rush art. Now that's somebody I also want to get on to do interviews, draw stream. That's like, I think we're all kind of competing. We're like, I'm going to be the first one to get him. And Spencer's like, no, man, I've known him longer. He's working on Book Me. He's going to go live with me. I'm like, no, he's going to go live with me. He respects me more. He's like, well, you might be right about that. But so we're all in love with Vince Rush art, and we all want him to put his pretty face and his pretty art on our strings. William C says, cool texture on the jeans. I'm going to assume that's this panel here. Yeah. Danny showing off his cross-hatching skills there. Boy, I'd get so jealous. This stuff would be on the page, and I'm like, okay. Can't even do these flames right. And look at the stuff that he's doing, man. And I'm using my cursor on the screen as if you guys can see what I'm talking about. Hey, GJ being nice. Those flames still look great, man. Hey, all right. Bloops. Yes, SDA. What's up, SDA? I didn't see you sneak in. A lot of S patterns. Yes, I think it should be spelled right. Kaniuga. Kaniuga? I don't know. Can you? Hey, Ara, very nice of you to say. I love your Hiding in Time and Divinity work. Yeah, sometime we'll talk about Hiding in Time in here, because I think it deserves sort of a second life. That was a mini series I drew with my friend Chris Long for Image Comics years and years ago. All right, everyone's saying hi to each other. Let me catch up on some comments here. If I did miss a question, do not hesitate to ask again. I'm not, I didn't ignore any questions. Just you guys say a lot of fun stuff, and you move quicker than I can keep up. Going back to when I cursed myself with death from Spencer, Simon7 says, "Don't worry, Ryan. While Spencer pummels you, I'll sneak around and confiscate the page and run for the hills." Hey, it's good to know that I got friends like you, Simon7. Or is it? Silver says, "I was prepared for Creed IGG, then I got sick." Yeah, Creed. I don't. Were they closing it out today, or was today just the last day and now it's in demand? I hope he's keeping that in demand. Those of you that don't know, Creed is a book that this penciler, he had been working on it before he got this Marvel gig, and I think he went right back to it afterwards, as well as leaving to go to animation. I don't think he did another Marvel project. He was definitely somebody Danny was. I hate to use this word these days. As an inker, he was grooming me to maybe, go on with Trent to the next gig. I don't even know if Trent liked these pencils. I'm never offended by if a penciler doesn't like inks. That's what I mean. If he liked these inks or not. Let's see. The perspective on those tires are effing with me. Yeah, sometimes sometimes people get a little you start to turn the wheels sideways. It can get a little wonky. That could have been me. That I inked that one. Where is it? That could have been me. It's a little off. This one was nice and easy because it's on its own like motorcycle grid. And it's perfect circles like that. Here, let's put it on this guy again. I like this guy. And Vince Rush says he needs to. Yes, he does need to get on our streams and show off to the world. Living Flames. Yes. What's up, SDA? Or he's saying what's up to me again. Whatever. What's up. What's up, brother? Charles says, "I was still reading comics with a good number of Marvel titles, but not Ghost Rider. I enjoyed the early issues of the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider." Yeah, I was working at a shop during high school. I was working at a shop, and that's when those Javier Saltares issues and the Mark Teixeira issues were coming out. I eventually got to ink a Mark Ghost Rider commission. And that was one of the funnest commissions I ever got to ink. That's over on my DeviantArt page. And I got to party with him a few times at some cons, and that was awesome. That was better than getting to ink him. Was going and getting beers with him. Super funny guy. Really loves to have a good time. Colin Swinburne in the house, my man from down under. These look great. Hey, thanks, dude. I'm glad you can make it. It is funny. Gosh, I'm seeing all the things I did wrong. I remember struggling with this handlebar here, and now I see like, if I would have just heavied up that line right there and done a little thicker on the end of that line there, it would have created exactly the right feel. Jay Lee says Creed campaign ended, but I think went in demand. Let me go look. Okay, cool. David Hayner, DDC Studios, being nice. He has also read Hiding in Time. He says it is the bleep. Oh, the semi-truck tires. Those are good. Let's see. Up here. Hey, those are me. But again, those are, Trent penciled them in. This one's a little off. This one's good. This one is tilting this way a little much, which would be the x-axis is off. So the x-axis is diagonal lines like this. You find your vertical and your horizontal in your perspectives, which are like this and like this. And then you find your X on that. This one's just a little off. This should be brought out here a little more. If this was digital, I could go in there, hit take the distortion or the warp and go little, and it would be perfect. Absolutely perfect. Be fixed in a second. All right, Jay Lee's gone. Our reporter Jay Lee has reported that Trent's Creed has 3 hours left. All right, cool. I forget the numbers it did, but it did. It's doing well. Colton Swinburne asks, what drills do you do to get the perspective right? Perspective's still one of those things that's not logged into my brain because there's multiple ways to do it. There's multiple ways I've learned and used successfully. But the best way I got to learn it was to take a Frank Quitely comic book. It was probably, I think it was issue 4 or something of All-Star Superman, where the 2 Kryptonians in yellow show up and beat up Superman. And what I would do is I would find the vanishing point in all of his panels, and then I would trace out the perspective lines like in the comic. And then I would look at like, what was the point of this panel? It was, this discussion between these 2 people, or Superman flying at somebody or something like that. And I would kind of just like first figure out like where he puts his horizon line for different scenes, because his whole thing is about, kind of like Martin Scorsese, if you're eye level with the character that you want the viewer to feel the emotion of at any given moment. And then, now that's not 100% across the board all the time, but that's a basic rule that these guys use. So I would kind of, knowing that, would look at these Frank Quitely books, and then I would just kind of practice like how he broke up his grids. Like I would study how a grid was done, and make my own grids on paper. Like it's so tough with perspective, man. I went through book after book, and like for me personally, it was just like something so hard to wrap my brain around how to do it right. That's a probably more than I should try to answer right now without examples, but that's how I learned. But the drills would just be doing exactly like whatever book you have or whatever you're going through, just do those exercises like multiple times. Just like I tell you guys with ink lines, sorry for hitting the mic. Don't practice on a page. The page is where you execute what you've practiced. So have sketchbooks and scratch paper and just do multiple, like whatever, types of lines you're going to do that same line 100 times and move on to another line. Same thing with like perspective grids, like do a grid with the, 1 point perspective grid, like do 10 of those at different sizes with different scale grids and stuff. And then try 2 point and then try, 3 point, but there's, I don't really have a set way, but that I just repeating, like for me, that's all that's ever worked, is just putting the time in, just repeating everything without trying to make it a final product. Just practice like that. Anthony Gambino, have you ever used the box method perspective? I believe so. Now that's where you create the box fronts, like 1 or 2 sides or however sides, you kind of sketch that out and then create the grid off that, like find the vanishing points off that. Is that, or is that where you mark at different points on the X and Y axis at different sizes on your panel, so that when you trace the lines across, it creates expanding grids? That's a little more advanced than I want to explain right now, but feel free, Gambino. And everyone, follow Anthony Gambino. He's the latest homie hanging out with us on the Geronimo Draws draw stream, and he has 3 days left on his campaign. It's the Anthony Gambino 2020 sketchbook. It's all movie monsters, Universal, and more. And he's got this fantastic high contrast style. I'm super stoked on his stuff, and I think you guys will be too. Vince Rush says perspective is such a hassle, but so worth it in the end. Yeah, definitely. And when you start out, you're going to grid out everything, and it's going to seem like it takes forever. And then you're going to start to learn like where you can kind of either cheat or where you only have to work that into part of a panel, or things like that. But definitely, if you're going to dive into perspective, you're going to have to give it some time, and you're going to have to give it some consistency, some daily study, let stuff soak in, and put stuff to practice before you, or practice stuff before you put it into practice on an actual piece. Colin says, also, when's the last time you'd seen under 12s ripped into reading comics with fiendish gusto? The issues of Gods and Gears got trashed over the week, but 30 happy kids hungry for more is a plus. Oh, that's awesome to hear. Man, I love that. Yeah, Gods and Gears is our all ages title. It's sort of created to have that same feel as a late 70s, 80s Marvel book. Actually, it's sort of anything from the 60s to the 80s is sort of what's inspired the storytelling style and the look of the book itself. But it's an all ages book, and I love it. That's all I hear is the plan worked. So the plan was a bunch of 20 to 40 some year old dudes reading comics. You guys pick it up, and then you give them to your kids, your nieces, and your nephews because you thought it was so cool that a kid should be reading it. Where most people hadn't read a book like that in a long time. Hey, what's up, Dillard Troz? What's up, man? I heard you on a stream earlier. It sounded like you had some issues going on with your hands or something. I hope everything is cool, man. Another great creator, super funny dude too, man. He's definitely somebody I think we need to get on one of the shows and just let him entertain us. What is up? Good to have you here. Eric Housel being nice. What is up? Definitely. G&G is great. Thank you. Yeah, we're working on issues 5 through 8, and I should have had it to Dean in January, but we both didn't like what was going on with part of the script, and now we've got it kind of figured out. We pulled back on some stuff and made the story. We streamlined the story better, and now I just have to basically wrap up Hammerella, and I'm a few weeks behind on that, or almost a month behind on that. But I'm still moving through the pages. We're well past, I'm past 40 pages now, and it looks like we're going to be 60 some pages in the end, as promised. But I think there's going to be a few more than promised because I wanted to expand a few. This is not a Hammerella episode. We're supposed to be talking about this stuff. Anyways, it's going good. It's everyone's saying what's up to Anthony. Doing reshoots. Big Ink Energy. What's up, Ginge? That's pretty funny. I was saying, sorry, I got distracted. So anyways, we are working on that. The next G&G thing, it's awesome. Boys are on another planet. I don't think this is a spoiler. I really like the title. It's called Grand Thrux, and they're into this really cool race, and there's some really cool characters that are going to come out of it. We're going to play with some of the old gods are going to come into play. We're going to have some new people tied to the god pantheon that are going to make an appearance, and we're definitely going to have Eli's grandfather. He's always going to be making an appearance in some flashbacks. That would be Ozzy. So we're going to have Ozzy definitely show up. All right, let me know. Let's see. We got maybe 10, 15 minutes that we can keep hanging out. Let me know if there's anything on these pages you want to see specifically. Let me pull the camera back a little. This is a cool panel with Johnny lighting the bike up. And I know I said this guy looked like the owner of the art store I worked at, but nowadays this could totally be played by stuntman and actor Tom Proctor. He's in tons of movies. But most popular, he was in 12 Days a Slave, and he was in Guardians of the Galaxy too. He had a speaking role. He's one of the Reavers. He had a speaking role. He died at the end. Pretty cool role, but I'd like to see Tom Proctor in a role like this. Not a repeating character in the Ghost Rider role, but he was a decent mechanic, cool kind of sidekick character in this. Anyways, let's keep it on this badass bike on the art cam. I'd better have some more God King Markham. Well, I don't want to spoil anything with you. There's something involved. I mean, Jimmy's always going to have Markham's helmet and his bat, so there's always going to be some sort of tie to it. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm not gonna let you know either way what's going on with that. But you're going to be really happy with everything. And people that wanted more racing out of the first issue, you're going to get more racing. But don't worry, it's still completely character driven. No pun intended. That's the whole point of the series, is that we could take them away from all the magic and cosmic elements and still tell this story like on a street level, and the characters would still be going through the same thing, but we're trying to make it visually more stimulating. Let's see. Eric Housel working on your Empress piece now. Oh, I see. It must have been a commission or something like that. Right on. Oh, that must have been from the auction. I am so brain dead. Silver Ogre says, oh no, more Hammerella than expected. That's just horrible. Well, we added the 8 pages, and then I was like, I'm behind, and then we had some more family sickness, and then I guess I can be a little honest with you guys. I had a pinched nerve in my hip this week, and I was kind of in blinding pain the last few days. I'm doing much better today. That's why I dipped out on the Geronimo Draws auction. I was faking the front for a while. I was having fun and making jokes, and it was distracting. And then after a while, it was like I was just blind with pain, and was like, I have to go. So, I pulled my Irish goodbye and bailed. But boy, that was awesome. Rob announced the thing like 5 days beforehand, and I was like, I hope people are ready for this. We just had the Red Valkyrie auction, this or that. And boy, he pulled it off for people. It was such a fun stream, super funny all throughout. Went way longer. I think he went 4 hours. It's usually a 2-hour stream. Went way longer. Let's see. Dillard Draws says, I love drawing upshots like that, looking up someone's nostrils, but I've found a lot of people don't like seeing it. Weird. There's something I'm cool with that too. But I think that's because there's something about me as an artist. I like the structure of the nose, like not even thinking about it, boogers or nose hairs or anything like that. There's just it's this structure. I'm big into shapes. That's how I like to draw everything. And man, if you look at some of the best Jim Lee books from his X-Men run 25 years ago, I was just looking at some of the issues earlier today. I noticed the same thing. There's tons of upshots. Because at the time, he must have just been feeling. He was like, and they all look awesome. So you could tell he could feel that upshot. But yeah, I've heard the same thing. Like, especially if it's like a big panel, or if you zoom in closer than this, where people be like, "Oh, what are you making me look up his nose for?" It's like, yo, I didn't draw boogers on it. It's his nose. We all have a nose. I got to look at your nose every time I talk to you. But yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's a funny comment. Unhinged Entertainment. People often draw a penis nose. Don't draw a penis nose. Yeah, no junk on the front. Liza Bar, draw those boogers, Ryan. Big, chunky, gooey ones. I'm trying to think if there was probably something in Spawn where we drew boogers inside some monster's nostrils. And I've probably hidden my name inside somebody's nostril somewhere. I was looking all over these pages. I know there's a place where I hid my wife's name, Mia. I usually would put her name in the grass, and I couldn't find it. Still looking right now. Because that was one of the things Danny would let us do, was we would always hide our family members' names in the books. And then when we would do cityscapes, you got Spider-Man or the Avengers or whatever flying through a city, we would just make up street signs. We would make, Crime Lab Studios, inks and stuff like that. We would do the same thing when I was a Top Cow. If you look at my Hunter Killer pages, anytime there's like a bulletin board in the back of a sheriff's office, for example, there's this one scene, a dude commits suicide and he's against the wall like this, and everything up on there that's like wanted posters for other members of the studio, like Eric Bossledu or something, like it's like wanted for sucking at Halo and stuff like that. And I would put like my best friend John, I would put his name in places, and like always create like a bar, like John's Bar, because he was one of my drinking buddies and he likes to party hard and stuff. So I would always make a bar in his honor, stuff like that. So that's one of the things I miss about like doing mainstream or superhero books. It's like, not that I can't do that on my own, especially my own creator-owned books, but I don't do cityscape. I don't do New York. I don't have anything like that. There isn't anywhere to create signs, but I'll still hide Mia's name sometimes. I don't do that on the Dean's line work, but like in Hammerella, her name will be kind of sprinkled out in here and there. Her name's everywhere in Spawn. Probably the biggest place I hid it in plain sight in Spawn was one of the later issues during the Armageddon run. There's a double page splash of Wanda and what's his butt, the guy who is Spawn, but he's in human form, and they're like flashing through these memories, and it's like shattered glass in the background, and these big pieces in the shattered glass. I put my initials RAW and my wife's name MIA, and no one noticed or cared. I don't even think I asked Danny about that one. I think I just did it. But they're pretty big. Like even in print, they're a couple inches big. It's just like RAW and MIA. But it kind of looks like the glass cracks. Al Simmons, thank you, SDA. It's like my nerd and my inking cred is revoked for not remembering that, especially because it was a guy that worked at. It was the name of a real life guy that worked for Todd McFarlane. Let's see. TJ Good Thunder says, "Stop being an old man. Act your personality. 20-something. LOL. JK, glad you're doing better." Yeah, well, it's partially a result of just I've been sitting so much, and what I learned early on, about 15 years ago, I learned how to sit for a long time and make it sort of like a yoga. It's like good posture. I do good stretching throughout the day, good posture. But these last 3 months, my hips been driving me crazy. It's a lifelong problem I've had since birth. But man, these last 3 months, it's been really bad. And yeah, I added that much more extra to my workload and my time sitting without countering with extra activity or extra, because I was actually losing time on that. So just messed myself up. So it was weird taking a few days off these last couple days, but I couldn't even look at the iPad. There's no way I could join in the draw stream or anything like that. But I don't know. I hate whining. Now I feel like I'm whining. We got to move on. I'm no whining. No room for whining. So you think that you've got trouble? Well, trouble's a bubble, so tell old Mr. Trouble to get lost. Those are lyrics from the Dick Van Dyke Show. I always keep those in my head. They're basically about manning up. Eliza Bar says, "Man, I had a pinched nerve in my shoulder. I feel your pain." Yeah, that's I first had one in my shoulder. That's when I started figuring all this stuff out. It was around 15 years ago. Did the same thing, and had to keep working through it because that was one of those things. It sucked, but the lessons I learned and the stuff I learned about like working through pain and stuff like that, invaluable to this day. Not stuff that like, oh, I can just sit and work through pain, but sent me down a path of learning how to deal with the stuff. And especially, now that I'm old and getting older, it only has the possibility of getting worse. So I'm like, okay, gotta figure this stuff out a little bit more. I used to stand and draw a little bit, and I've gone through various types of chairs and stuff. But I found the best thing was to just do a little bit of stretching, even just walk around the block a few times, but don't sit in one position for more than an hour and a half. Like literally, like all that stuff they say about for office workers, like get up every hour and walk 5 minutes. You just do that. Like if you just keep that up, it helps so much. Oh, that's quite all right. I see Charlie says, yeah, win. It's not win, but spelling my name different. Nah, chronic pain sucks. It's okay to talk about. Win, not wine. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. Gotcha. I'm not Ryan Wine. Ryan Win. But you guys want to hear about that. It's not what we're here for. Unhinged Entertainment says he has a standing drawing table. Bob Rostash it. Yeah, I'm in the midst of kind of saying words I can't say. Rearranging the studio. Because yeah, for a good portion of the last 20 years, I was just inking. So for just inking, my posture, my desk, all that stuff, nailed. I can ink 12 hours a day and have zero issues. It's throwing in the posture for penciling, which is different, and writing. And also for most of that time, I was never sitting at a computer typing. So all of these things I've been doing different in the last couple of years have changed. But then in the last few months, just grinding down on Hammerella and Gods and Gears, just they fought back a little, and I hadn't taken any days off. So the last 2 days I took off from that, and now I'm jonesing. Like when we're done here, I'm like gonna pop on a movie with the wife. I've got multiple Hammerella pages set up for inking and coloring, which is easy on the brain to get back into stuff. And I've got new ideas for the giant fight scene at the end that I'm just about to get to. I'm mostly bummed I can't share pages yet because everything's spoilerific right now, and I definitely don't want to show any of the fight pages. As I've moved through this, I'm getting better and better than I was when I got the book funded. So I think it's going to be like doubly the surprise when we get there. I'm probably going to be dead afterwards, but I think it's going to be worth it. I do have the story set up for the follow-up story. So what I'm going to do is just keep working on that because I'm not gonna run a campaign like this again without having X amount done. Now that I know what it takes, because I don't want to work on the project during the campaign. During the campaign, I want to plan for 60 days of partying and selling the product. And my cable's caught here. I don't want to be doing that and then like, oh, go on, have a blast on Red Valkyrie, and then try to like do notes and stuff while because like you ride this buzz. Like you guys know how it is. We all do live streams. We all hop on there, but especially when you're promoting your book, you're doing stuff like that. It's another beast. You know, I play in a band and play music for 20 years. It was so much more like that than anything I ever did making comics. And so now I know the campaign needs to be this roving party. Like it's just super fun. Let's have a blast. And then afterwards, maybe do the last 25% of the book or something like that. Like, but looking back, I also, this is just how it had to work out with the stuff that happened last year and all this stuff. It's how it is. But now going forward, I'm excited for the future in that sense. Spoilers. Silver Ogre, no spoilers. I want to hold that in my grubby hands. Yeah, because it got to the point where there were things where, like, early on in the campaign and these last few months, I showed a lot of the pages where she's younger, because those are just kind of like little flashbacky things. But even then, I was like, there were certain pages I was like, that panel I can't show. So I think I may show a couple like panels or parts of panels here or there, like of new pages, so you guys can kind of see a couple things, but definitely not going to be. You don't get to see any of the final fight at all. Dean's helping me out with some of the layouts and some of the designs, so that we can. I don't know. So it's easier for me, but also we can kind of integrate our styles so that when he ends up drawing these characters in Gods and Gears in issue like 20 something, it'll look good in his design too. Because he usually does his own thing. Even if I've designed a character or a ship or something, he kind of does his own take on it. So I just thought, for some of this stuff, let me just have him help me design it. And then, I'll just do my version of it, and then he can do his version of it. Charles says, I've drawn while walking, but wouldn't want to draw standing. I got a walking desk. I tell you, I do laps around the park and answer phone calls. I picture a walking desk being like that walker that like babies have, where they're, it's got that tray around them. You can just like cruise around the park and get maybe your iPad. You don't even need a computer. Just get an iPad. Silver Ogre says that Cyclops skull would make a great condo. Yeah, do I have that image here. No, I don't have it handy, but he's talking about the Cyclops image from the Geronimo Draws Drawstream. I drew a giant Cyclops skull on the beach with a young Hammerella coming up to it. Yeah, that's an image I'm not quite sure what to do with. It's not, it's not part of the story, but I like it so much. I don't know if it'll make it into the book, even as a pinup, but I don't know. We'll figure something out with that. Maybe it does become part of the story and it's some sort of a flashback in the second story, but that's a little cart before horse. We don't like our carts before horses around here. To win, does she go back in time and steal the gauntlet? Yeah, and she makes fun of Back to the Future the whole time. What? No, of course my characters would never make fun of Back to the Future and then go back in time to steal a gauntlet. My characters would never do that in a boring-ass movie. Sorry, no offense. I thought the first one was cool. The Infinity something. Was it called Infinity War? Yeah, Infinity War. The comic was Gauntlet. I thought the first one was cool. Endgame felt like, boy, remember last year's movie? Here's all the parts that didn't make it in it. You're like, oh, well, okay. Let's see. GJ Martinez, will I get an email from you about that add-on sketch perk I picked up from Hammerella Thundersmoke campaign? Yeah, if you haven't, double check to see if you haven't. We should have been sending emails out to everyone, and I didn't have you. I just got a list this week of who, because I wasn't running the list, but for all the commissions and stuff, because I didn't want to know who was who. I just wanted to know who to draw. But I just got the list of, there's 3 or 4 people that still haven't replied to any of the emails, and a couple of them I can't find on Twitter now. I'll get those names, but yeah, double check if you haven't. Hit me up in the DMs, man. We'll get that worked out for you, because I've got all but those ones drawn, and I know your name was not on that list, so we might have got a mix up there. So yeah, just go ahead and DM me. Haven't received it. Okay, yeah, just DM me tonight or tomorrow with a reminder, and we'll get that worked out, man. I'm sorry about that. DDC Studios says, should have been called Will This Ever End Game? That's going to be something about the stream at first. I'm like, hey, man, we're just over an hour. No, I usually don't go that long. We'll go a couple more minutes, see if you guys got a few questions. You know what? Here's some of the stuff I might be posting tomorrow. I know a bunch of you aren't really big Valiant fans, but I do have some Valiant stuff that was unlisted that I'm going to be posting tomorrow in my shop. And these were done as character designs, but also variant covers. Pencils by Trevor Hairsign, inks by myself. And I sort of experimented with each one. With Trevor, I would always go really tight on heads and hands with the inks. And then loosen up with the brush. And I'm getting freeze frame on my second camera. I want to move, so we'll leave that there. But yeah, so I've got that, and then we've got this Punk Mambo, and I went really loose on parts of this one, and again, really tight on the face and hands, and then really went sort of expressive with the brush lines in accordance to Trevor using the side of his pencil. First Valiant was awesome, even after Shooter. Yeah, I loved all the Shooter stuff when I was young, and I was hesitant at first with the new stuff in 2012 when they started, and then I was actually really happy. I was happy enough with it that I came back to inking with them. I had already broken out on my own and started my creator-owned stuff, Death Betty, and was doing all that years and years ago. And then, yeah, in 2014, they came a knocking, and they had Trevor Hairstein. And here's an EXO from Stalinverse that we did that also made it to a cover. And again, this one is, 5% brush on the face and hands, and then the rest is all, nib, and the rest is all brush. But yeah, Trevor's a beast. I think he's just as good as at lighting and figure work as someone, let's say, like David Finch or something. That's not to bring David down. I'm trying to elevate how I feel about, or not how I feel. I'm just elevating Trevor to that position. He's a fantastic storyteller. He and I did a run called Divinity. There was 3 volumes, 4 issues each, and then there was a follow-up series called Eternity that we did, and that was actually where I first broke out into digital inks. Did half of that with digital and half of that traditional. So I'm going to be posting those tomorrow, as well as some David LaFuente pages over on Archer and Armstrong that we did, because I only ever posted from the first issue we did, and there's 3 more issues that have like some really, really fun things. There's I think I might post a page where the giant monster pukes at the end, where they get him super drunk and he pukes, and the panels actually spell out the words puke. It's pretty cool. This is Trevor Hairsign. Trevor Scott is Trevor Scott's really good too. Fantastic inker. Ferris Jabbar says, has a Scott Williams feel in the blacks. Yeah, that would be a result of sort of how I'm using the side of the brush to make those chisel marks. Scott's really good at those. He was somebody that I studied for those specifically for a long time. And I think you're talking about like some of this stuff down here. Possibly. Maybe you're talking about on Exo. I don't know. Yeah, Silvar Ogre. I remember a robot fighter punching metal with bare hands was so cool. Yeah, what was it? Dynamite has the rights to that, to Turok and Magnus, the robot fighter. DDC Studio says, not a week goes by that I don't look over my Divinity Saga trades for inspiration. Wow, man, thank you so much. Also, I think that's one of Matt Kint's best stories. I know he does really trippy stuff with like mind management and stuff like that, but this was something, it was both mainstream and art house at the same time. I kind of described it as like he took the superhero, like the stereotypical superhero script, and kind of like played jazz with it. So like, you know, he like a lot of misdirection, a lot of, you thought we were going here, but then he pulls back and we're here, you know, so it hits all those story points that we kind of need for the hero's journey, but he really masked it well. And yeah, I really enjoyed being part of that series. Simonin says Magnus was 60s originally, I think. Yeah, I think it goes back to like, is it Charlton? Something like that. You guys always know. And I didn't say hi yet, but I did read one of your comments. Hello, Ferris Jabbar. Good to see you, buddy. Oh, where black spots meet hatching. Maybe somewhere in, I hate to put it up, but like maybe like the crotch or something. Like in there. Scott does those 30-degree hatches like that, where you do your horizontal lines and then you go 30 degrees for your hatch like that. It's funny because Scott will just say everything is classic Marvel. He just does classic Marvel stuff, but he just did it thinner and tighter, which is true, but it's such a dismissive way to be humble. Where you're like, well, okay, so maybe, yeah, sure, Scott, maybe you're just doing the modern version of classic inks, but you made everyone want to ink. Like, you made people want to pick up a pen and a brush. Like, you made people want to trace their friends' pencils. Before that, everyone just wanted to just be the artist. And then when they saw Scott's name, and Terry was the same way. Terry I noticed before Scott, Terry Austin. And Terry's actually really high up my list. Terry's, I don't know who I actually would put above Terry as far as my favorite from that era. But that was somebody like Terry Austin and Kevin Nolan were the #1 guys that Joe Weems and I would focus on when we were doing our studio together, to the point where our slogan was, what would Kevin Nolan do? And my friend made a plaque. She made a plaque for me with Kevin Nolan as a saint and it says, "What would Kevin Nolan do?" And this hangs in my studio, and that's because nothing would ever leave Kevin Nolan's studio without being at a certain level. He would change pencils if they sucked. If the eyes were wrong, he would fix them. If the background shapes were off or the background sucked, he would just make it better. Basically, he always made it worth the reader's dollar, and that was how we looked at things. We were like, nothing should be like, if we know that something should be better, we're going to make it better. And that sounds super cocky, and it is. But that's how we operated. And sometimes pencilers would get mad. Most of the time, if they were like, righteous dudes, they were like, "Thank you for fixing that for me. Oh my gosh, this looks so much better." And it wouldn't be, we weren't trying to lay our heavy hand. Anytime we fixed something too, it was about making it look like theirs. That was the thing we didn't do that Kevin Nolan did. His changes, it was always looked like a Kevin Nolan thing all of a sudden. And we always thought that would be our twist on it, would be that we're going to fix it, but we're still going to make it look like the rest of the page. It's going to be consistent with your style. But we just, back then it was funny. Things were like $225. We were like, man, people pay $225 for this. That's like half an hour of their work hour, or something. And it's like, it's got to be worth it to them. Plus, we just wanted anything that had our name on it to just be that badass. We wanted our pages to stop collectors when they were turning pages through portfolios at conventions and things like that. GJ says, "Okay, I just sent you an email through Twitter DM. Thanks. Thank you for doing that. Yeah, get back to you tonight in the morning. We'll get that sorted out, brother." Yeah, we got some Terry Austin love in the house. Unhinged says Terry Austin is top tier, and congratulations, Unhinged, on Absolute 2. Yeah, dude, you are killing it. I would say I love your style. It sounds like I'm just saying that when you show up. I absolutely do love your style. It's so unique. It's so cool. I really love hearing about the breakdown you do when you do your inks. If you don't mind, I'm going to share it here. What Jason does is, if I get this right, if I get it wrong, please correct me, but he will draw an image and ink part of it, like maybe the outlines digitally, then print it up so that, he has the outlines and stuff done, and some of the blacks, I think, and then goes in and noodles and does the rendering and splatters and fingerprint, does all the extra, I think. And I don't know, I think it's a great result. I think it's a fantastic workaround for the way you work. But yeah, if I got that wrong, feel free. But hearing stuff like that, that's the kind of thing, like, don't be afraid to try stuff, you guys. Like, just like, there's no like set rules for how to do it. Like, you got to think of the rules as like, you can follow the rules to not fail, but you don't have to follow the rules to succeed. Does that make sense? It's like people use the 22 panels by Wally Wood as almost like something to fall back on. You can always use these. They will always work. You do not have to use one of those 22 to tell your story or to get your point across, but you can. So if you have an idea like Jason did on how, like, hey, I need to work in a different way. I found this combo of traditional and digital works for me. Like, don't think that because you don't see somebody else doing that like, oh, I don't know if that'll work. Like, I see a lot of this defeatist attitude in young creators or any creators of all age. And it's like, don't let anything stop you. Don't let yourself stop you, first and foremost. I'm going to stop rambling and read your guys' comments. Charles says, Byrne and Austin together are like Lee and Williams. Yeah, and Byrne didn't like Austin's inks, which is nuts. But I thought they looked fantastic. I'm also a big fan of Byrne inking himself, but I thought their X-Men stuff was like so technically perfect. But I think that was one of the issues, is that it was maybe a little too tight for Byrne. But he just didn't like anything. What it really probably was, is that somebody else was getting the page rate and the royalties, and he didn't want to have to share that on X-Men. Because Terry was sending his kids to school and buying a house with those X-Men royalties. Hey, Ty Ranger has made an appearance. Says, hi, William. Hey, Ginge. Good to see you, buddy. Ty Ranger is a good friend of the channel and the chat. And if you watch our Monday show, the comic ship, he has done the artwork for our little segment called Booty from Beyond. You know what? It's right here. It's right here. Let's show it off. And this is John Hervey, Mr. Hervey's segment of the show. So that is Ty Ranger's work there. Thank you, Ty, for participating in that. And let's see, Charles Petrie, know the rules to break them, right? Yes, exactly. That's the whole thing. Deathcare says the song is your peak. So what? I have to leave? No, I return. You'll not make me leave. It's not my peak. That's also a joke, because an inside joke, because one of the things I've sent him this week was I was in a Kirby mode. You know, I get in a Kirby mode. I'm 44 now, so I've hiked my pants up to just under my chest, just like Jack Kirby, because that's what you're supposed to do. And I was looking at artists that had maybe peaked 25 years ago, but that are still active. And then I was looking at artists that peaked late in life. And Kirby, it's arguable when Kirby peaked, but to me, he just kept going. Now, there is a time where his work was tighter and, you know, technically better, but there was something about, even when he got older, there was something about his vision, his storytelling, and stuff like that. And so yeah, I told Spencer, it's like, never let me peak. Don't let me peak, bro. I have to keep pushing myself to get better. You know, I have to be like, and this is how I got to be a good inker. Is I was young and I had to catch up to the guys that had 10, 20 years ahead of me. So I had to put in extra time. Now that doesn't create life experience, which helps a lot, but it does create muscle memory experience. So if they had put down 1,000 lines a day for 10 years, I need to be putting down 1,000 lines a week for the next 2 years. I needed to do anything like that. Now, and that's how I feel now about drawing, where I was an inker for so long that I feel I'm about 12, 15 years behind where I should be as a penciler. I feel that what I'm producing is there, but what I want to be producing is beyond that. And that's where I feel I'm breaking through with Hammerella, is that I've nailed the stuff I was kind of weak at, and now I'm able to focus on strengthening, like making those my strong points, and to keep pushing in that way, so that I'm never settled, and I want to catch up. I want to by next year, I want to be only 5 years behind where I want to be as a penciler, so that, you know, a couple of years after that, I can be either caught up or be pushing beyond, you know. So now I'm trying to make it's like, you know, the 5-year plan, so that when I'm 50, I'm going to be where I want to be on trajectory to be better as a penciler, illustrator, all of that stuff. So yeah, the joke with me and Death Curse is don't let me peak. You know, I have to keep pushing and keep growing. I have to keep getting better. Don't let me settle. Don't tell me something's good if it's just okay. Don't just back pat me. Everything I do's got to be my best, and it has to be something that keeps, you know, the reader engaged, or, you know, the viewer engaged, or the listener, whether it comes to music, because I do that as well. All right, I am just rambling now. Hey, Vince Rush is still here. All right. I always feel cool if like certain people stay. You're like, oh, I got him to stay. All right. Just because I don't see him that often, you know? It's not special. I got to stop making Vince feel special, especially because once he comes on the show, I'm just going to make fun of him and rip on him the whole time. Ty Ranger says, you'd think the longer you do something, the better you'd get. The body, though, that can get in the way. Well, so can just complacency. We very easily get complacent in what we do. You know, if something becomes easy, we just do that, and we might stick to that. I have certain things I'm trying to shake on how I place eyes in the head at certain angles. And it was something that I just let go on all of my other projects. On like I can look at Death Betty or The Rise or all these other things that I penciled, and I can see and like, now I see what's wrong with the way I was structuring my heads at that time. But yeah, the body can get in the way too. But I see a lot of I see mental speed bumps get in the way more than physical. I mean, obviously depends on the physical issue. You know, I was just talking about nerve pinches and stuff like that earlier, and we have a lot of friends with issues with their hands and their back and stuff like that. Gambino says that's a great mentality to have, so you never retire, but take some time to appreciate what you've accomplished. Yeah. That's something, you knucklehead. That was Gambino adding the knucklehead. I would never call somebody a knucklehead. Charles says he's a firm believer in writers, artists, and musicians should do their thing daily, even if it's just practice or 5 minutes. Yeah, that's one of the things I encourage with people, even if they just want to do something creative, is to just play with a brush pen in a sketchbook while you're watching TV and just make pretty lines, thin to thick lines, and just bounce creatively, or just sketch a head you see on TV or something. But don't make it feel like a chore. You know, that's a thing that that's the number one thing I think that stops creatives, is when something feels like a job and it's not actually funny to me. I don't laugh at people. I guess more in the cosmic kind of big picture sense. It's funny to me when I see somebody and they're like, you know, all I want to do is say make comics, and then it happens that they can make comics, and then all of a sudden they freeze. And that stops people more than anything else. And it's I don't know. Now I'm rambling. Let's catch up on these. Ty Ranger agreeing with Silvar Ogre. Yeah, I switched to Ty because the fake name was never pronounced right. Oh yes, because he was I'm probably going to say it wrong. It was spelled as Ty Ion Ranger, and everyone was always saying it weird, so he just went with Ty Ranger. Hey, we got David Chiza in the house. I'm wearing my smoking jacket and slippers. I seem to have stumbled upon a room of exquisite taste. Why, yes, you have, my friend. This is David Chiza, fellow Alterna creator. He is the writer of Rad Rose, which is not out yet. Is it? I got a shipment this week of Alterna books I've got to go through. I know I've placed the order for it. I don't know. You'll let me know. Vince Rush, very nice of you, man. He says it's a great show. He had to stay. Yeah, you know what? We're going to go 3 more minutes just because you guys are still sticking around. But then I do have to get back to work. Charles says I should leave then? No, never. Charles also says the arts, so long as one has health, can be done until death. Yeah, I mean, Monet was 80-something. His eyes started failing him. And this is like 1905 or something like this. His eyes started failing him in his late 80s, and he had surgery on his eyeballs. His eyeballs. It grosses me out. It's surgery on his eyeballs, and then did some of the best paintings of his life in the last 3 years of his life. But even through his failing eyesight, he just kept painting. He was somebody I studied around 20 years old. I started studying all the Impressionists, and those guys had a big impact on me because I saw a lot of myself in them. They sort of have this punk rock attitude, taking on the establishment, and even the rich dudes that came up rich, like Degas, they sort of had an FU attitude to people, like I'm going to do things my way. And I really appreciated that. But one of the things that was cool about Monet was his driving force to recreate the thing he felt. And that's where the Impressionism came in. He wasn't recreating what he saw as much as what he felt. And, they're matching colors. They're matching colors, and it's a blurred feel, so it feels like you're more like you're there than the classic paintings and stuff. But he had this driving force to the point that, like, when his wife was dying, he did, I think, 2 or 3 paintings to try to capture the colors that were transitioning in her. And it sounds monstrous in one hand, but in the other hand, it's this, he was feeling through this whole thing, and it was his way of dealing with this insane thing that happened. I mean, of course, months later, he married his cousin or her cousin or whatever, but somebody's got to raise the kids, right? I mean, come on. But he had this driving force. I mean, so he had that going on, and then to the point where, in his late 80s, it was still pushing and trying to represent, and he never settled. He was always trying to figure out what's the best way to represent something showing through water with this sort of envelope of weather above us with these clouds reflecting and things like that. Like, he just had this push, and so he didn't peak. He had his friend, he said, "Don't let me peak." And his friend was like, "I'm never going to let you peak, Monet. Oui, Monet." Hey, Death Curse announcing tomorrow night Gambino becomes a real boy. That means tomorrow night over on the Death Curse YouTube channel, they will be hanging out, drawing, and closing out the Indiegogo campaign for Anthony Gambino and his sketchbook. So make sure to join them over there. If you're not subscribed, go look up Death Curse, look for the rooster with a gun, and hit subscribe. We have a lot of fun over there. We do get rude and crude. So I know over here I bleep out all kinds of foul language usually, but over there it's quite the opposite. But do join us. And then, like I said earlier, on the Death Curse Patreon, not only are there the comedy podcasts and movie reviews, things like that, there's going to be art tutorials. And once a month, I will be posting a 15 to 20 minute video titled Ink Like a Man. And the first video is up. It is a Can't Kill Kate inks. We saw part of it here a couple weeks ago on a chill stream, but I did the complete time lapse of the figure, added music, and just a little bit of talking and commentary between the songs. But $1 a month will grab you just that, and you can listen to all the other nonsense while you're there too. Charles says, "Well, if you're aiming to be a pro, thinking of it as a job is a good thing." Oh, you know what? That's where I got lost. Is once people think of it as a job, it stops being fun. Now, see, for me, I'm not anything special, but I grew up in a creative household. My dad had a sign shop my entire life. My brother runs it now. My mom was creative on the side. She did calligraphy and did like plaques and memorabilia things for people. My grandfather was a fireman for his career, but then was like an artist and a craftsman and a sign maker on the side as well. So for me, it just kind of always went hand in hand as work. It was like shop life. And then what worked well for me was coming in with Danny Mickey, John Levisay, Joe Weems. Whenever I worked for those guys, it was all the same thing. It was like, this is a job. This isn't, we're not artsy fartsy, inky feely, like emotions like this or that. It's like, no, you show up, you do the job, you do it on time, you do it like a man. And that's one of the things I think will be fun about the series Ink Like a Man, is teaching you guys how to ink like a man, whether you're a man or woman or anything in between or outside that. Death Curse expands. William C., we're doing a special show for Anthony Gambino and his campaign, getting down to the wire, but I think we're allowing people to work on their comics if they want some bonus time. Yeah, I just like I said with the stuff I was going through with my hip, I'm going to be taking a break from the draw streams for a few weeks, even Geronimo draws and stuff, which it absolutely breaks my heart to do that stuff. Like every time I have to cancel one of those things, it's like canceling a party or something. Like I have so much fun doing them. Even if I'm canceling for a responsible reason, I get so bummed. But I just decided, I need to take a few weeks off. I need to focus on finishing Hammerella, and I need to finish this Gods and Gears script and get it over to Dean, because he needs the work and he's ready for it. And I don't know, we're jonesing for it. So I need to step back a little. We're going to keep doing the comic ship, and I'm going to keep doing the late night inks chills. Ty Ranger, so toxic masculinity there, Ryan. I know. That's how I do it. And Charles says, okay, you're past your time. Not that you should leave, but you said, yeah, okay. In a second. So we're going to keep doing the comic ship. Those of you that are new, Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific, we do the comic ship, and that's a show where we discuss indie comics and indie music. I have my first mate, Mr. John Hervey, who's the writer of Magna the Last Pantheon, as my co-host, and he does a segment called Beyond Booty from Beyond. I played the card video for that earlier. And he usually showcases something that isn't a current campaign. It isn't something that's on everyone's radars. Maybe it's something old that he knows somebody or something he just is a fan of, but he picks an indie book to showcase. And then we have Brian from Blastbeat ATX as our man on the street, as our music man. And he brings indie music that he'll bring you, links and whatever to the CDs or the YouTube page of indie bands that he thinks are cool. And so that's what we do on Mondays. And then usually Late Night Inks Live or Late Night Inks at all is Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Pacific. But yesterday I couldn't make it. All right. Well, that's it. I am going to play our outro song. It looks like I got all your questions. The inking looks like Michael Bear. Thank you so much. I'll take that as a compliment. And cool stream for sure. Hey, thank you, Charles. Charles, one of the newest homies showing up for Late Night Inks. And until next time, you guys take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and take it easy.
You must